Hello, hello, hello. I am Matt Williamson. Tomorrow's mailbag day, by the way, so start getting me those questions. They've been great. Just so happens there's a website, fantasypoints.com, and I know some of the guys over there pretty well. I've been on different shows with them. They've been on different shows with me, and they comp me their service. But they have a really good data spot, and I get a lot of my nerdy stats from their data. But I was just scrolling through their Twitter feed this morning and happened to find over the last couple of days a lot of Steeler-related stuff. And yes, some of this, or a lot of it, is based on fantasy points and things like that. But you know where fantasy points come from? Production on the field, and that matters. So I want to read you a couple of these and respond to a couple of them because I found a lot very interesting. So they put out a list of the top 10 wide receivers in terms of fantasy points scored per route run against man coverage. Really breaking it down. Just man coverage per route run. How many points do you put out for the fantasy world? And it probably shocks no one that Tyreek Hill's number one. In terms of how good receivers are, this might be one of the best metrics out there because beating man coverage is the hard thing. You know, I've told you before, Pickens is really good versus man. His numbers versus zone are really poor, but I think a lot of that is scheme and not, giving him cover two beaters and things like that. So check out this list. Hill is 1, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, Christian Watson, who only played 9 games, but it's per route run. Brandon Ayuk, and then George Pickens, so pretty crazy, and the author makes kind of a joke. He's like, Christian Watson and George Pickens would likely already be superstars in a hypothetical NFL where 2/3 of the team did not play zone over 66% of the time. So, in case you didn't know that, about 66% of the teams play zone 66% of the time or more. So, yes, it's the best thing to be a killer against man because it's harder, but you're still always going to see way more zone snaps. But still, only 9 players were basically more productive than Pickens against man coverage. Now, I think it's Arthur Smith's turn to create ways that Pickens and the rest of his passing game can thrive versus zone, which I like his chances of doing it better than Matt Canada. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from baseball, golf, and so many more. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So you can find all these on my Twitter timeline, @WilliamsonNFL. I just retweeted a bunch that I thought were relevant, and we're going to go through them, like I said. So we've talked a lot about play action. We haven't talked nearly as much about pre-snap motion. So Ryan Heath, who works for the site, put out a graph last year of one axis is the amount of play action. One of them is pre-snap motion. And when it's all said and done, he said, with the offensive coordinator changes around the league, the 3 candidates to be more efficient through the air are the Saints, the Panthers, and the Steelers by using these 2 tools, cheat codes, whatever. But if you look at this graph, those 3 teams are at the bottom. The Saints, the Panthers, both of whom are ahead of the Steelers in terms of play action percentage. But they're the 3 at the bottom of the league by far. And frankly, I do expect all 3 to be much more efficient through the air. In terms of pre-snap motion, the Steelers were basically league average, where those 2 teams were in the bottom left for everything. So I do think this is a longer conversation, but, and I'm just killing Canada, and I don't mean to destroy the guy, but he didn't use motion well to me. I mean, like the real tape buff guys will tell you he used motion just to kind of say he used motion, where Arthur Smith used motion to influence the defense, to get them off their spots. And I think you'll see the difference as early as the preseason. You know, trotting a guy across the formation to say we used motion is a lot more what they used to do, as opposed to I really created something from the motion. Now, I bet you're not going to love this, but it's pretty crazy to me. So they listed, again, a lot of these are just top 10 type things, the highest team run rates with 10 or more yards to go. Doesn't matter the down, but if there's 10 yards, 1st and 10, or it's 2nd and 15 after a sack or a penalty or whatever, who were the teams that ran the ball with 10 or more yards to go? Well, the Steelers did it 48.1% of the time. Now, a lot of those are on 1st and 10. Okay, so that's why the number's bigger than you'd think. But some of them are on 3rd and 16 too, you know, almost 50%. Well, you know who was right behind them? The Atlanta Falcons. You know, so the joke here is Arthur Smith's going to feel right at home in Pittsburgh. You know, that those were the two offenses in the league that with 10 yards or more to go ran the ball the highest percentage. So my hunch is that probably isn't going to change all that much. All right, how about this one? Fantasy points scored, this is a quarterback stat, per dropback. When the quarterback was under pressure, though. So if you filter all these things out, okay, every dropback, just give me all the ones where the quarterback was deemed pressured. Who produced the most? And as a result, produced the most fantasy points. Brock Purdy was number one. You know, you could say what you want about that system and all those things, and all that stuff's true. But when things got rough and people were coming after him hard, he put his guys in position to make plays. Dak Prescott was next. He was the runner-up for MVP, in case you remember, in case you forgot. Josh Allen was next. He would have been my bet to have been number one on this list. And I think Pat Mahomes is the only quarterback on the planet who's better than him. Russell Wilson was fourth. Right ahead of Lamar, Burrow, Lawrence, ahead of Mahomes, ahead of everybody else. Russell Wilson was fourth in terms of producing fantasy points, but that means touchdowns and yardage, of course, when under pressure last year. I didn't see that coming. When I saw that, I was like, really? I am shocked by that. So, all right. Last one I got for you. There's been a lot of talk, of course, about man versus zone runs. You know, that Arthur Smith was 31st in terms of man blocking runs with Atlanta last year. 31%. Where the Steelers were middle. They were 44%. They were 17th. So in turn, he was also second in zone runs. Now, that's one of my concerns with the hire, because if they get away from the man blocking, all the pulling and trapping and stuff that Broderick Jones did so well, and really both these tackles should do extremely well. Not that they can't be good in zone, but they were weaponized. I mean, you could really weaponize these tackles as man scheme guys. So we'll see. I mean, to me, that falls on Tomlin, that we're fine with you making zone a big deal, Arthur. That's great. You know, and we want to get good at it too. I mean, run the ball. But we're not going to be 31st in man blocking schemes. Can't happen. I mean, it can't. That being said, over the past 2 years, not in zone schemes, Najee averages 4.1 yards a carry. Warren's at 3.9. Okay. But in man concept runs, Najee's at 3.67 compared to Warren being at 6.74. There's something to be said for that. First off, I do think there's a misnomer that Harris can't run zone. And I've had some doubts. I don't think he's perfect for it in terms of Clinton Portis in the old school Shanahan scheme, waiting, stick your foot in the ground, explode upfield. That's not exactly Najee. But maybe this is why he's trimmed down a little too. Where Warren's numbers not being great there don't quite add up, and I don't put a lot of credence in it, to be honest with you. But both of them were decent in man. It did shock me that Najee's average yards per carry was higher in zone than it is man over the last 2 years. So I thought that was noteworthy. But of course, the most noteworthy thing is Warren with man concepts is like the best in the league. I mean, if you're just under 7 yards a carry whenever you're doing man blocking schemes, pulling guards, things like that, power, that better not go away. That's all I'm saying. So, hope you enjoyed the show. I will be taking questions for tomorrow's mailbag ASAP. Thanks.